So this is week 2 of the course. Um, by this point, you've now gotten yourself familiar with the textbook and an overview of how economists think about the world. And so now this, for some people, um, becomes a little bit of a difficult chapter just because it is the very first economic model that you're looking at. And um, while the textbook author has an idea of how it should be covered, um, I differ in the sense that there are two chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 9, that are kind of pretty closely related to each other. And so I have you looking at both of those here. In chapter 3, what we're doing is we're looking at a model of how three main economic questions are answered. What is going to be produced? How is it going to be produced? Who's it going to be produced for? And we do that with something called a production possibilities frontier. It's kind of a line that represents the maximum capabilities of the country given all of its resources. What's the maximum output it could do? And so we draw a line where the x-axis and y-axis each represent different goods. And so what we do in chapter 3 is we talk about um, how an economy could be below the frontier if it's inefficient, how it could be on the frontier if it's efficient, and how it can't operate outside of the frontier. Chapter 3 also reintroduces the important concept of the opportunity cost, what you give up instead. And so that's something that ends up becoming an important thing for understanding that trade off. And then that kind of segues to chapter 9, where we then actually apply um, the production possibilities frontier to there being two different countries, where these two different countries trade with each other. And we use those opportunity costs. We compare the calculations of the opportunity costs for two countries to find the country that has the lowest opportunity cost, gives up the least for producing a good. And that's what gives a country its comparative advantage. And so chapter 9 has a little bit more math involved. There are two assignments, one for each of these two chapters. And then there's an analysis number 2. Now, analysis number 2, which you're doing in Google Classroom. Let's just look at this here very briefly. When I go into classroom.google.com, very first time you type it in, always make sure you're in the right way of looking at it. So I had to just switch to my hawaii.edu. You'll probably only see one course, but then you see the one right here for trade. And that's what we get right here. So again, you're reading the article and then organizing your thoughts into 3 paragraphs. One where you summarize the article, one where you discuss the economic concepts, and then 1 paragraph where you share your own thoughts. Okay, that's our week 2 for this course.